Kakadosh, Boker Or. Masechet Shevuot Daf Yomi Daf Yud Bet Amud Aleph 12a1. We were just speaking about the difference between the ketoret and other types of korbanot. We said that the ketoret is different than other types of korbanot because when we're talking about motara ketoret, because that's what we were speaking about above in Daf Yod Amud Bet, the leftovers of the ketoret, and we wanted to reuse it. So now, how do you reuse it? So if you remember yesterday, we learned you do a whole switch. You remember we come and we take the salary of the guy's a thing, and then they're going to buy it back. And then by buying it back, then you can use it again. You could reuse it, right? That was the trick that we spoke about yesterday, that you're giving it as a salary, and then you take from the new shkalim, and then you're going to buy it back, and now it's considered the from the new one, and now you're able to reuse it, correct? Okay. So now what happens is as follows. So you have the ketoret. The ketoret, we said, was very different than any other type of a korban. The ketoret in itself, you couldn't make it get a blemish because it's not like a regular korban that you could just make it get a blemish. If you look in the Rashi, when it says that there's no takana b'riyah, that's why he says that they were matzne on it, right? Because he says because there's no other way to get out of it. Meaning, an animal, naturally you could get out of it. You put it inside of the grazing area where he always grazes, and it gets a blemish. That's why you have to be so careful with animals not to get a blemish, because it's very easy for an animal to get a blemish. You just put it outside, after a little bit of time, boom, it gets a blemish. It got kicked, it got this, there's a fox, weasels, whatever it is. There's millions of things, it could get a blemish. But he says, the ketoret, what do you do? So because of that, he says, Shane ketoret, de la veriyahu. So says the Gemara, but rather, so that means it cannot be that the Rabbanan that are arguing on Rabbi Shimon is talking about this Rabbanan. Ella, we're talking about Rabbanan de Para. We're talking about the Rabbanan of Paraduma. You remember we just mentioned that Paraduma is going to be redeemed on any type of a thing. Why? Lev betin matne. What does that mean, lev betin matne? The betin come and they make a condition that now they could uproot the Kedusha and they could redeem it. That's called lev betin matne and the Kedusha. So he comes and he says over here like this. He says, we want to say that Rabbi Yochanan understood that just like there's a concept of lev betin matne to do with paraduma that was not needed, so too lev betin matne is to do with the tmidin. So he says, din mashane paraduma the damea yekarin. Says again one more time. Remember, whenever we're trying to compare certain things, many times we come and we say, don't compare, right? In the shiur, they have a pitgam, don't makish, but it's not a kesh, right? But just some. The concept is, don't compare. Why? Because I cannot compare apples to oranges. It has to be oranges to oranges or apples to apples. So therefore, I had a korban of a tamid, right? I wanted to compare the paraduma, the lev betin is matne, to this. He comes and he says, you can't compare. He says, why? Paraduma is very, very expensive. So I don't want it to go to the waste. So in order for it not to go to the waste, even if it's not shchiach, because we just said that there was going to be 7 paradumas in 830 years. In both Bet HaMikdash, you had 7 paradumas. You know what that is? The amount of years. Do a simple calculation. It could be that once in a lifetime you see a paraduma. You understand? Or sometimes even it's not every year you get a paraduma. Yeah, 7 in 800 years. That's 100 and whatever it is, 115 years each. That means you have to live 115 years to see one paraduma. You understand? Again, it could be wherever the person is in his lifetime. I'm saying that it's not common. So therefore, there, right, we would say maybe if it's not shchiach, you don't have lev betin matne. We said it is. Why lev betin matne? Because it's very, very expensive. It's très cher. So since it's so expensive, a person will never come, right, and just, you know what, kapara. Well, kapara. I know it's a para, but you don't just say kapara. It's a lot of money. So lev betin are going to come and they're going to be matne on the paraduma. So says the Gemara, fine. So it can't be the paraduma. So ve'ela barado, the kavanah of Rabbi Yochanan is l'rabbanan de amrulo. The rabbanan of that they told him. You remember that we just mentioned that what happens if you had some of the seirim that got lost and then you found them again. So let's say you had a seir of the shalosh regalim. It got lost and now I want to bring it on Rosh Chodesh. Can I bring it? Or I have to bring a new one? Or the other way around. It was a seed of Rosh Chodesh, it got lost, right? And now can I bring it on the Chag? No. Right? So Rabbi Shimon says mutar. So Amrulo, they told Rabbi Shimon, Hoil ven kaparatam shaveh, since it's not the same kapara, How do you come and you tell me that you could say yes? So what did he answer? It's the Shem Tumah, Chazak Baruch. It's the same Shem. You're right. Each one could be a little bit different in the details. But pratim. הלם ידוע ידיעה שבהתחלה, ידיעה שבסוף, no. אבל מה השם הכולל? מה הכללי? The categorically, what is it? תומת מקדש וקדושיו. Right? We're talking about מקדש וקדושיו. So אמרו לו, that's אמרו לו לרבי שמעון. Right? So what did he answer? He answered like this. So therefore, from the fact that Chachamim, these are the Chachamim that are telling Rabbi Shimon, so it's mashma, they're arguing on Rabbi Shimon. So therefore, they hold that since it's not the same kapara, you can bring them one onto the other. Fine. Says the Gemara, Mimayd Rabbi Yudahi. How do you know this is that Rabbi Yudah? He says, Ve'achi kamalei, and this is what he was actually coming and explaining. Bishlema ledidi, it's good according to me that I'm going to say lev betin matznei alehen. The lev betin are going to come and they're going to make a condition. So amtu lahachi. So because of that, we're going to permit it. Shikrevu, that it's going to be brought. Why? Because at the end of the day, right, lev betin is matneh, and therefore if lev betin is matneh, they could now bring it as another korban, because the lev betin make a condition on this, and now I could come and I could change everything. But he says, right, ela ledidach, but according to you that you said no, right, which means that you're saying, right, that there's no betin matnim on kedushat hatzibur. So amai yikrevu. So for why are you going to bring it then? So says the Gemara, Dilma Rabbi Meir, maybe it's Rabbi Meir. And this is what they said. It's good according to Rabbi Meir. That I'm going to say kol asidin kaparatan shaveh. Everything's the same. You guys remember yesterday the chart. In Shitat Rabbi Meir, what was the chart? It was a good test. No? Well, according to Rabbi Meir, what was the chart? All of them are the same. The first one is the different one. That's what you mean. Yes. First one is the different one. All the rest are all the same. Take the chart. Everything else is the same. Meaning, number 2, 3, 4, you have the Sira Pnimi. Sira Pnimi was separate. Other than the Sira Pnimi, you had Sir Chitzoni, you had Shalosh Shegalim, and you have Rosh Chodesh. All the three of them were the same according to Rabbi Meir. That's what we just said now. According to me, that I'm going to say Kol Asirin Kaparatan Shava, all of them are the same. So therefore you're going to bring them. But according to you, Amai Yikrevu, right? Meaning according to you, your Shita Rabbi Shimon, that you say that they're not the same kapara. Meaning according to me, it's the same kapara. But according to you, Amai Yikrevu, right? Why are you going to bring it? Right? So he comes and he says, Ela, but rather, Rabbi Yochanan Gemara Gamila. He says, Rabbi Yochanan, he says he was Mekabela Masoret from his rabbis, that according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, right, the Tmidim that were not needed, and Nifdin. And according to Chachamim, Nifdin. But we don't actually know, right, the Dat Chachamim in our Mishnayot and the Braitot, we don't have that. Meaning it was a Masoret. I want to try to bring a proof. I don't have a proof. Sometimes we don't have proof to things, but sometimes we have Masoret. So the Masoret, right, was you have Machloke between Rabbi Shimon and Chachamim. You're going to ask me, how do you know that? At the end, I'm not going to have a proof. I don't know. It's a Masoret. We have it, and that's it. So that's where he has it. So he comes and he says, Rabbi Shimon, but according to Shtat Rabbi Shimon, the lev beti matneh alehem, that he does not hold of lev beti matneh, so mayav din lo. So then how do you kosher it to come and zbiach? Samar Yitzchak, Rabbi Yochanan, mekaitzin bahen et hamizbeach. You do bring them as kaitz hamizbeach. Meaning, you remember what ketz hamizbeach was? Kaitz hamizbeach was that if you had a time where there's no korbanot, off season. You know what off season is? Many times you have the season, then you have off season. Off season, it's empty. Right? It's like recess, yes. So the question is, what do you do when the mizbeach is just empty? So imagine, you brought the korban tamid shachar. You brought the, but until there's nothing cooking. Now, it's a disgrace. What? Mamash, there's nothing on the mizbeach for the entire day. It's kilu, everyone's coming and they're like, hey, we want to see something and there's nothing to see. It's like, what's going on over here? So therefore, ben azmani. So he comes and he says, there's kites on mizbeach. What is kites on mizbeach? Kites on mizbeach is lashon kites, right? That what do? You come and you bring extra korbanot, right? Nedava. And that's called ketz mizbeach. So you come and just bring an extra one. Right? Why? So that way there's always something doing. There's always something cooking in the Beit HaMikdash. You're not going to come and it's empty from the morning, right? Ad ben arbaim. No. There's always something going. So they're going to bring another korban. Right? That's called ketz mizbeach. So he comes here and he says, right, that according to Shitat, right, Rabbi Shimon, right, when there was no korbanot that were being brought, they used to bring from the Ekdesh of Tzibur olot nedava. They used to bring a korban olah. But again, it's a nedava, it's a present. Right? Why does it have to be a korban olah and not chatat? Huh? Why can't you bring a korban chatat? Why does it have to be olat nedava? Ken, lama lo chatat? You're both saying the same thing. Continue. So therefore, since it's for the sin, very good. You could not bring a nedava from a chatat. Whenever we speak about a nedava, it's always an olat nedava. It cannot be a chatat nedava. Right? I said this already at the beginning of this year. That's why I just wanted to make sure we understand that clearly. Right? It has to be an olat nedava. Right? An olat nedava is not, it cannot be any other thing. It cannot be a chatat. It has to be an olat nedava. So therefore they come and they bring an olat nedava in order that the mizbeach should not be batel. That's called the ketz mizbeach. So he says, kivset midin, which were left over in the Shana Chadasha, right? You just bring them like ketz mizbeach. So it's not, you're not bringing it as a chovah. You're bringing it as a nedava. And therefore there, even if I don't hold of the concept of lev betin matne, that the betin can come and make a condition, la'akor mashu ve'latnot al zeh, right? He says you don't need that. What do? You have ketz mizbeach, and then that's it. So Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak, says Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak, modeh Rabbi Shimon b'seireh chatat, right? Rabbi Shimon is going to be modeh in any type of seireh chatat, she'en mekaitzin begufan, right? That you cannot bring them themselves to the mizbeach, ela bidmehen. What does that mean? You have to bring them on their money, not themselves. Meaning, according to Rabbi Shimon, he doesn't hold, right, any type of a seireh chatat of a tzibur that you didn't need. You can't just bring them as a kaitz mizbeach, but you could bring their money to the kaitz mizbeach. So how do you bring the money to the kaitz mizbeach? Again, the same thing. You're going to make sure that it gets a mum, and after it's going to get a mum, now you're going to be able to come and redeem it, and the money will go to kaitz mizbeach. So says the Gemara, hachahu the mikara ola behashta ola. Says 1 second. The tmidin which were left over beforehand, it was an ola, and also now it was an ola. Right? He says aval hatam, but sireh chatat sibur, the meikara chatat, v'hashta ola. There it's a chatat, and now it's becoming an ola. So gezerah le'achar kapara, right? So therefore chachamim come and they make a gezerah, right, to prohibit it, bring it as an ola chatat, right? Which is already, they already had a kapara with another one, atulifne kapara, right? Because of the chashash that maybe they're going to bring it, right, as an ola even before the chatat. And therefore, it's going to be a problem, which means like this. What was the entire concept we were talking about? We were talking about a chatat at tzibur, and we didn't need it anymore. Why? They already brought an atonement. They brought another chatat. They brought one, it got lost. They brought a second one, and all of a sudden, they found the first one. Now, this was a chatat at tzibur. So the chatat at tzibur, we said that we didn't need. What are you going to do? So if you tell me lev betin matneh, it's very easy. They were matneh, they uprooted it. Come on, boom. You just come, you change it, that's it. But if you're going to tell me that you don't hold of this concept of lev betin matneh, so what are you going to do? So according to Shtat Rabbi Shimon, what you do is you let it get graze, let it get a moon, and then you come and you take the money and you're able to use it. So now the Gemara is going to ask though, Chazak o Baruch, but what's going to happen in a case, right, over here? Over here it was always an olah. Meaning, before it was an olah, and also now it was an olah. When Rabbi Shimon came and he said that you're going to bring it as an olat, we're talking about an olat tamid. We're talking tmidim. Tmidim is an olah. This is becoming olat nedava. The ketz mizbeach is olat nedava. Olah. It sounds familiar, yeah? They're both the same. Shtem olot. To make sense. In our case, we're talking about a chatat tzibur. Chatat. Now what do you want to bring it? You want to bring it as Ketz HaMizbeach. What is Ketz HaMizbeach? Anola. It's a problem. It says, you're not doing, it's not the same name. Before, you had to bring a chatat. Now you want to bring anola. Now, says the Gemara, not only that, we made a gezerah. We made a gezerah after kapara because of before kapara. Meaning like this. After kapara, I already had the atonement. We brought another gezerah. We brought another chatat. So we were atoned. Chazak u'baruch. So technically, what am I going to do with this? It's extra. I don't need it anymore. But they made a decree after the kapara because of the before the kapara. What happens if before the kapara, they're going to do the same thing? They didn't bring the chatat yet. But I'm going to come and I'm going to redeem this animal, and then I'm going to bring it as an ulah. 1 second, but it's before. It's before the atonement. You have to use this animal for a chatat, not for an ulah. What's going on? I want to use it for a present. First, you have to do your obligation, then give presents, right? Imagine somebody owes you money. He comes to you, here's a present. Well, present. First, pay me what you owe me, and then you come to me with presents, right? Well, you come, you're out of order, right? Pay up your dues, and then do that. So same thing with the chatat. So Amar Abaye comes and he says, Afananami Tanina. We actually learned this. He says, why? Right? When you have a par and a Sayyid of Yom Kippurim that they go lost, and then you separated other ones. The same halacha with Sayyid Avodah Zarah. Avdu, they go lost. You got other ones. Kulan yamutu. The first shita was, all of them they die. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar and Shimon say, Yiru achi savu. No, let them graze. And after grazing, right, then what's going to happen? Right, after grazing, you're going to come and you're going to let it get a blemish. And after having a blemish, then you're going to sell it. So he says, Shein chatat tzibur meta, but it doesn't die. Right? Meaning, according to the shita, this is what we already learned before, right? We don't say that the chatat tzibur dies. Only a chatat yachid dies. Meaning, let's say right now, somebody was supposed to bring a korban chatat. They separated the korban chatat and then they pass away. You let the animal die. Why? It's a korban yachid. Chatat yachid shemetu be'alea. There's a few different cases, but chatat yachid shemetu be'alea, it dies. But not a chatat tzibur. This is the tzibur. The tzibur didn't die. The tzibur is everybody. He didn't die. So says the Gemara, right? V'amai, why? Nikrevu inu gufayu ola, right? Bring it in itself as an ola. So elalav shmamina, but we learn from here, gezerah lacha kapara tu lifnei kapara. Now we're going to bring a proof to this. Yeah? Amar Rava. Says Rava. Afananami tanina. We learned it. Yeah? Ve'asheni. Right? Yirea chistev. What does that mean now? Right? He comes and he says that the sheni, we're talking about now the second animal. Right? We said we're going to make sure that it gets a blemish, and then you're going to sell it and you're going to put it for a nedava. So you see here, from the fact that it says a sheni, you see that the chatat tzibur, right? It's not going to die. It's going to be yireh achistaev, just like we said. So there's a proof to it. So we asked the Gemara the same question. V'amai yikevu ihu ufei ola, right? Also just bring as an ola. Elalav shmamina, but rather comes to teach you gezerah achar kapara, right? Lifnei kapara. A third proof, which is the exact same thing. Amar Ravina, afanam nami tanin. We also learned it. Asham shemetu be'alav or shenikapru be'alav. The same halacha, by the way, applies to an asham. What's an asham? Guilt offering. What does that mean? It's like a chatat. Chatat is b'shogeg. Asham is b'mezid. So a guilt offering, salam shos. If right now a person came and they got their guilt offering through another offering, let's say it ran away and I found it, but between the time that it ran away and I found it, I brought another asham. So it's the same thing like a chatat. Yeah, I can't just bring presents, guilt offerings that's sitting against Hashem. So he says the same thing. Asham shemetu be'alav. Or what happens if the baalim, they died. So their death was their kapara. They don't need a kapara anymore. So therefore, what does happen now? So asham shemetu be'alav, or nitkapru be'alav, or they got a kapara already. So what happens? Yireh achistaev. They're going to come and they're going to do the same thing. Put it until it gets a blemish. Yimacher v'yiplul dabam l'nedava. You're going to sell it, right? And then they're going to put the money to the nedava. Rabbi Eliezer says yamut. It should die, right? Because this is like an asham chatat. So he says that it's halachal Moshe Sinai, they should die. Yoshua Omer yavi b'damav. No, it's a olat yachid, and therefore you just bring the money. So says the Gemara, "V'likarev ha gufa olah." Why don't you just bring it as an olah? So the Gemara answers elelav, but rather it's a gezerah after kapara for lifne kapara shemamina. Okay. We're on the brighter. The brighter comes and he teaches us on the bottom of Yud Bet Amud Aleph, 12b on the bottom, last line. We learned in the brighter. Ma hen mevi'in min hanotorot. What would they do with the extra korbanot tzibur that was left over from last year? So, for example, they have a whole bunch of animals and they have leftovers. What are you going to do for the next year? So he comes and he says like this. He says Yud Bet Amud Bet 12b. So it says ketz right, ketz, which is the kinuach seuda, as they say. Because ketz is like a minemetika. So he comes and he says, right, that it's going to be the korbanot, which is again the kinuach seuda kilu. So he comes and he says kibnot shuach, like te'anim levanot, benot shuach are white figs, which are brought to the mizbeach, which means according to him that tmidim which were not brought, right, from the last year, they cannot be brought, right, just like a Rabbi Yochanan and that Rabbi Shimon. Here he says it's mashma that they bring it to the mizbeach like a kinuach of the korbanot. So the Gemara is going to ask, 1 second, what do you mean you're going to bring it like a kinuach? He says, "V'aktiv," it's written in the Torah, "Ki chol seol v'chol devash v'oksideru mimenu yishel Adonai." What does that mean? He says you're not allowed to bring, right? And this is also the isur of aktarat, all types of fruits. So what does that mean? You're going to bring benot shuach, right? How do you bring benot shuach to the mizbeach? You know, chol seol v'chol devash, you're not allowed. So Tani Rabbi Chanina, so we learned, right? According to Rabbi Chanina, ki benot shuach le'adam. The ketz mizbeach is like benot shuach le'adam, meaning just like you would like ice cream, and you would like chocolate lava cake and things like that. It says for the mizbeach, it's like that. So for us, it's like benot shuach, but for them, it's korbanot. So Darash Rav Nachman bar Rav Chasta says Rav Nachman bar Rav Chasta, em mekaitzim be'olat ha'of. Remember, we just said that you're going to bring on the mizbeach whenever you had it empty. You used to bring an olat nedava. Can I bring olat ha'of? We just said no. You cannot bring an olat ha'of. Remember, olah is still a burnt offering, but you can't bring birds. It's not birds. He says over here, right? You cannot bring olat ha'of, right? He doesn't explain the reason. It just says that you can bring it. So he says, Amar Rava. Rava says, right? Haburcha. He says, why not? Right? Why in the world can you not bring, right, a bird? At the end of the day, bring an olah. So he says, which one? So he comes and he says, Haburcha. Well, there's no yesod to this. Why not? So Amar le Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak le Rava, says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak to Rava, my burchata, why is it chaser ora? He says, I said it already. We said it. The Amar Vashim Adam motarot lenedivat tzibur azle. He comes and he says the extra motarot they go as a nedivat tzibur. Ve'en olat of betzibur. There's no olat of in the tzibur, which means, right? Obviously the maskana now we understand. Yeah, זה עכשיו המקום הנאמר. No, ודאי שזה משליך על אותו, אבל לפני כן, ודאי זה אותו מסקנה, אבל we weren't there. I'm in the Havamina of the Gemara. If I'm in the Havamina of the Gemara, I don't know why. And that's why, if not, he's not going to ask, why is it burchata? Burchata means, it's like, kilu, ma tamepapet. If you already know the answer, it's not that. So therefore, obviously, right, it's the concept is because, enolatov betzibur. So it's a Gemara. So he comes and he says, even Shemuel holds also the same thing like Rabbi Yochanan, right? That according to him, we said that it wasn't required, right? He says they're going to be brought as ketzam mizbeach. He says, Shmuel korbanot tzibur sakin moshachtan lemashehen. The korbanot tzibur is the shchitatam bestam, is they're going to bring it to the same thing that they were at the beginning, which means any korbanot tzibur which was left over, right? They're going to be nishchatim be'atzmam for the same species of the korban that they did beforehand. So even though it's not a korban mamash, because again, olat tamid is not the same as what we're doing now, but it's still going to be brought as an olah. Okay? We're almost done. Yeah, Tanya Miyachi. We also learned it in Abraita. He says, "Umoder b'Shimon." Moder b'Shimon says b'Said, "Shim lo karav baregel." That if you have a Said which is not brought in the regel, you can Rosh Chodesh, bring it in the Rosh Chodesh. If lo karav Rosh Chodesh, if you didn't bring Rosh Chodesh, bring Kippur. And if it wasn't brought in Kippur, bring it on the regel. And if it wasn't brought on this regel, bring it on another regel. Shemitchilato lo ba ela lechaper al mizbeach hachitzon. Because this Said was in order to come and to be mechaper on the mizbeach hachitzon. So as long as it's going to be brought on mizbeach hachitzon, and for the Shem Kapara, like the original Kapara, so even though it's not Mamash Leota Kapara, it's still kosher. Yeah, but that's what we said before. At the end of the day, all of these, that's why, doctor, if you realize, everyone here, you remember we kept on saying, 1 second, why is it that the Seira Pnimi is always different than all the other Seirim? It's very simple. The Seira Pnimi is only one which is Pnimi. All the other ones, whether it's Seir of Rosh Chodesh, Seir of the Shalosh Regalim, Seir of the Chitzoni, they're all Chitzon, they're all outside. So that's why they always have the same malachot as the outside and not the Sira Pnimi. Sira Pnimi is a different category. It's a different stock. I don't know what you want to call it. It's a different hybrid, right? It's something completely different. Fine. Nekuda. 2 dots. Everyone's with me? Yeah? Very good. You remember we said the Sira Pnimi is mechaper bezadon. And you did it purposely. You purposely came into the Bet HaMikdash when you were tameh, or you purposely ate, right? When you're tameh, right? That's when the Sira Pnimi is going to be mechaper al zeh. So he says, Zedon tuma mikdash v'kadosh. Says the Gemara Minan, how do we know these words? To turn around because we learned it. Right? V'chiper al hakodesh v'toma b'nei Yisrael. Peshaim elu amradim. Whenever we speak about peshaim, peshaim is mered. Mered is rebellion. When a person sins, there's no rebellion here. You sinned, right? It wasn't pesha, right? There was no pshia. There was no mamash poshea. What's a poshea? Poshea? What? Yeah. So he comes and he says, "There's no mamash shia here." So he says, like this. He says, "Pesha is mered. Mered is mamash. They're coming with all their mored, right? What is mored? Mored is bechavana. They're coming, they're sinning, they're sinners. There has to be a different word than sinners, right? Because again, sin usually is by accident. Chet. Right? Whenever you come and you tell me that it's going to be pesha, pesha is mamash bezadon. Yeah, they're coming and they're, Exactly. Right? Pshayim elu amradim, v'chen omer melech moav pashavi, v'omer az tivsha, livna ba'et hahi. Chataot are the shigagot. V'chen omer nefesh ki techeta bishkaga. A nefesh is going to come and to be techeta bishkaga. So you see from here that there's going to be a difference between chet and pesha. Now you understand when you say salach lanu avinu ki chatanu, mechol lanu malkenu ki fashanu. I once heard my Shiva gave an entire shiur. Why is it that Davka Selicha is on Chet and Mechila is on Pesha? Right? Because it's going to be a much bigger Teorah. Selach lanu avinu ki chatanu. Chet, you say Selicha. Right? On Pesha, you say Mechila. Right? It's a different level. It's a different level of how you're sinning. So therefore also the Selicha and Mechila is supposed to, in Hebrew, modern Hebrew, it's all the same. Slicha, mechila, it's not otodovar, right? No, pesha is bizadon. Pesha is mored, rebellious. Yeah, pesha is rebellious. Chet is shogeg. Everyone has to remember, the easiest way to remember this? What's a chatat? Korban chatat is b'shogeg. When somebody chas v'sholom, they're mechalel Shabbat b'shogeg. They bring on korban chatat. So chatat is a shogeg. Right? And pesha is a poshea, right? What's a poshea? Poshea is somebody that does something like with a okay, nowadays they say pshia, which is negligence, but it's not negligence, it's bechavana, right? He's a poshea. He's a I don't know what's it's called in English. There has to be a word for it. No, it's a completely different thing. That's what he's saying. He's saying here, right, that when it says v'chiper al tumot bnei Yisrael mipisheim lechol chatotam, he says the seid of pnimi is mechaper on 2 different averot, on the pesha and also on the chatat, because it says umipishehem lechol chatotam, both of them. Okay, so that was a proof that the Seira Pnimi is going to be mechaper, right? The Seira Pnimi is going to be mechaper al both. Also on Zadon. Zadon, what's it Zadon? What's that bechavana? What's that poshea? Huh? Al shar averot shebatorah, and all the other averot in the Torah. Hakalot v'achamurot, zedonot, u'shegagot. So what happens? So he says that's a Seira Mishtaleach. So the Seira Mishtaleach, right, is going to come and is going to be mechaper on all the other averot. Yeah, ma? Says the Gemara, Hainu kalot, Hainu sevelot taaseh. When we just said that all the other averot in the Torah, whenever it's going to be kalot, what are kalot? Kalot are mitzvot taaseh, mitzvot lo taaseh. Positive and negative commandments. When it says chamurot, what are chamurot? Kritut u'mitot betin. Karet u'mitot betin. Hoda, Hainu mezid. Right? Because it says over there, al shar averot shebel Torah ve'al kalot v'chamurot v'zdonot v'shgot, hoda ve'lo hoda. Aseh ve'lo taaseh. So when it says over here, Hoda, Hainu Mezid. Hoda, Hainu Mezid. Yeah, he says like this. He says, Hoda is Mezid. Lo Hoda, Hainu Shogeg. Yeah. So he comes and he says like this. He says, Hoda is purposely. Lo Hoda is Shogeg. He didn't know about it. So Amar of Yudah says of Yudah, Haki Kamer, this is what it say. Al Shara Verot Shabbat Torah, Ben Kalot, Ben Chamurot, whether it's Kalot or Chamurot, Ben Asan B'Shogeg, Ben Asan Mizid, whether you did a Shogeg Mizid. O Tan Shasan B'Shogeg, if you didn't Shogeg, Ben Odalo Seika, Ben Shalot, whether you knew about it or you didn't know about it. Ve'elu ena Kalot, and these are the Kalot, Aseh ve'lo ta'aseh, ve'elu ena Chamurot, Kritut u'mitot betin, which means on all these things, if a person did it on Yom Kippurim, he's not chayav to bring a korban, but the Seira Mishtaleach is mechaper. So the Seira Mishtaleach is going to be mechaper on all of these things. Yeah, it's like an explanation of what we said beforehand. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara, Hayaseh Chidami, which mitzvah taseh? What are you talking about now? So you did a mitzvah taseh. So he says, Idelo avat teshuvah, if he didn't do a teshuvah, zevach reshaim to'eva. He says, Amumar la'avera, his korban is not, it does not atone for him. If he didn't do teshuvah, he's a mumar. So what do you mean? He didn't do any mitzvah. What is going on? Right? So he says, he did do teshuvah, kol yom anami. So then every single day, he's got a kapara. He doesn't need kippur. He doesn't need sira mishtalach. A person has a mitzvah taseh, right? Any mitzvah taseh. He didn't put on tefillin. He didn't do it. That's a positive commandment, right? So now, and again, we're not talking about that he never put it on. Then that's a karkafta deloma, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about mamash that one day he didn't put it on. So fine. So what is that? That's a positive commandment. When he does teshuvah, he gets atoned. So I don't need kippur. I don't need a Seira Mishtaleach to come to be mechaper hazeh. I don't need a kippur to come mechaper hazeh. Kol yom will say teshuvah ve'azeu. It's not like lo ta'aseh, because lo ta'aseh you need to get yisurin, you need to get this. You don't need it. The Tanya, mi she'avar mitzvot taseh v'asat teshuvah lo zad misham shemochalin lo. So Amar Bizera answers the Bizera be'omed be'mirdo. He's still rebellious. He's still not doing it, and it's Rabbi, because Rabbi said the Tanya Rabbi Omer al kol averot shebel Torah v'nisal teshuvah b'shuvah yom kippurim mechaper chutz miporek ol umgale panim b'Torah umefer brit babasar she'im asat teshuvah yom kippurim mechaper im lav en yom kippurim mechaper. He says this according to Shtat Rabbi. He comes and he wants to say that even if it's somebody that was not shav b'teshuvah, it's still going to be mechaper kippur. Usually we always say that in order for kippur to be mechaper, it's only if you do teshuvah. According to Shtat Rabbi, even if you didn't do teshuvah, kippur, the essence of kippur is mechaper. Even if you don't do teshuvah, the kippur in itself, it's like a laundry machine without whether you went through the laundry. I don't care if you didn't want to, you did want to. You went through the washing machine, through the car wash. I don't care if you wanted to or not. You went through it, you got cleaned. Rabbi Omer. Al kol averot shebel Torah ben shelo asat teshuvah. Yom Kippurim mechaper. Yom Kippurim is mechaper. There's exceptions to the rules. He says it. Chutz mi porek kol. Because if a person's porek kol means he doesn't believe in Hashem. He's porek kol malchut shamayim, kofer beikar. Or megale panim b'Torah shelo kalacha. He's megale panim b'Torah, which means that he's mitchatzef, that he's saying bad things about the Torah. Or mefir bebrit babasar. Or he's coming as mevatel lebrit milah. We're talking about brit milah today, right? So on these three averot, then if he does teshuvah yom kippurim mechaper, if he does not. But on any other mitzvah, even if he didn't do teshuvah according to Shtat Rebbe, he's going to get forgiven. That's a power of Kippur. After Kippur,